I mentioned in the previous lesson that you can control audio volume and panning using keyframes in a sequence in the timeline panel. I think it's a more intuitive way to control volume than using the effect controls panel. That's because you're right down in the timeline where you can see the relationship between clips. Because lots of times you're controlling one clip versus another one, so you can have the volume change depending on what you're hearing in the other clip. And you can also look at the waveform inside a clip to help you make decisions about where to put keyframes and where to make volume and panning changes. So I want to show you how to do that in this lesson. Go to Working Files, Projects, and go on down to 1704 Adjust Audio Timeline. We're going to work with the same clips we worked on in the previous lesson, but we're going to work on them here in the timeline, in a sequence here. We're going to start with this music clip, which you recall is pretty loud. What I want to do is just bring the volume down. Now I'm going to select this clip, and it's going to show up inside the Effect Controls panel with the volume open there so you can see it as we make changes. We're going to make the changes right here in the timeline using this little line here, the little yellow line, sometimes called the Levels Control or the rubber band. We're going to pull that up and down. And you pull that up and down using the Selection tool. Just have the Selection tool there, and when you get there, it's a context-sensitive tool, right? And it changes to that little rubber band or levels controller there with two arrows going up and down. Now, in addition to the Selection tool, you can also use the Pen tool. When you hover over it, you get this little plus sign. That means if you click there, you're going to add a keyframe there with the Pen tool. It can come in handy if you want to add a bunch of keyframes. But if you simply want to pull the line up and down, you need to hold down the Control or Command keyboard modifier to do that. So it can get a little clumsy sometimes. I'll show you how it works though a little bit later on in the lesson. Right now I want to go back to the Selection tool. Now, how do you know this little line is going to control volume? You know it because you can see it here in this little drop-down list. If you don't see the drop-down list, that means that you're zoomed out too far. If you're zoomed out like this, it just disappears. You need to be zoomed in far enough so you can see past the name of the clip, sort of like that, and then you get to see this drop-down list. And the drop-down list shows every effect applied to this clip. Now, there are 3 fixed effects automatically applied to this stereo clip. But if we applied a bunch of other effects like reverb and things like that, they would show up here too. The list can get a little lengthy, so it's good to know that volume and panning are right near the top. By the way, the same kind of drop-down list applies to video clips. You can access video effects inside the video clips using a drop-down list like this. But it's much more intuitive to work on video effects inside the Effect Controls panel, which is why I didn't talk to you about using the drop-down list for video effects. But back on the audio side, I really like using the drop-down list to work with volume and panning. And you know it's volume level, and you can confirm its volume level by going volume and seeing that level is checked there. If you want to change to panning, for example, you go panning balance. You still have the yellow line there, but you're controlling the panning, not the volume. So I'm going to go back to volume here, volume level. Now you can make volume level the only thing that shows up here if you want to, and that's controlled by this little button over here. It says Show Keyframes. You have a choice to show clip keyframes or clip volume. If you choose clip volume, you don't have a choice here anymore. It's just volume, so there's no confusion anymore. I want to go back to the default here where it's clip keyframes. I can also go to track keyframes or track volume. I'm going to talk about how you control the entire track in another sequence. So let's stick with show clip keyframes, and we're going to stick with volume. Now I just want to change the volume here. I want to drop it down. So I'm just going to hover here until I get that little up and down arrow, click and drag and pull it down. You can see the change in volume there. It kind of goes quickly, jumps around a lot. So if you want to slow down that change, hold down the control or the command key, and then it's going to be a more fine-tuned drop there. You can do big chunks, then fine-tune it when you hold down the control or command key. So we'll bring it down to about there. If you hover over here, you can see what the volume is here, minus 11.57, which is round off to 11.6. Now we can play this. So did you notice that as was playing, it was about minus 12 dBFS? We dropped it about 12 dB, and this thing started out just below 0 dBFS, decibels below full scale, so bringing it down that far, then brought it down that far here as well. So that's the results there. Let's move on down to Gettysburg here. This is kind of a low volume to go. Our Father is brought forth on this. So I want to bring it up, so I need to click on it so I can see it over here in the Effect Controls panel. Open up volume there so I can see what's going on. I want to bring it up, and before you notice we brought it up to only 6. Well, we'll see what we can do here inside the clip. Pull it up, and it stops at 6.02. That's as far as we can go. So just as we got the 6 here and stopped, you get the 6 here and stop as well. No working around that. So we're going to use the gain again. Right-click on here and go to Audio Gain. We'll increase it to 12 dB like that. And we'll say that's probably going to be too loud. But now we're going to play it for a while and see what it sounds like.
This continent, a new nation, conceived in liberty,
and dedicated to the proposition. So you can pull it down on the fly like that and listen to it as you pull it down. Fourth on this continent. Okay, that's how you can control that without any keyframes. We're going to go to this next sequence here and add some keyframes. It helps sometimes to get a little real estate here, so I'm going to pull up this line here between the video and audio, bring it a little bit higher so we deal only with audio. And the default view is that this first header is open, this disclosure triangle is open, but the rest of them are not, so you can open it up like this. If I want to expand the view so I can see the waveform better, I pull down on the bottom of this header, pull it down like that. If I want to expand the view of a video track, I pull it up to do that. So up for video, down for audio. I'm not too concerned about waveform here because the waveform is pretty non-distinct. It's just this basic white noise there. So I'll leave that up like that. I want to put keyframes here in this audio. So I need to find a place where I want to finish the change. Someplace like this, let's say. I'll just say right there should be the end of the increase in volume. So to add a keyframe, there's a couple ways to do that. If you make the clip active like this, then a little diamond shows up here. The Add Remove Keyframe button shows up here, just like the one up here in the volume right there. Same little routine as that one. So here, if you just click on that, that adds a keyframe there, that little dot. If I want to then add another keyframe, I can pull it over here like this to the left and do that again. Very simple. If I want to move the keyframe, I can just slide it to the left and pull it down. So that's what I'm going to do here to make the volume change. How intuitive is that? Just that easy to add a keyframe, move it where you want it, and then drop the volume. Simple. Let's do that again so you can see that at work. I'm going to expand the view a little bit here so I can have more room to manipulate the keyframes. You can see we are at this keyframe where we want to be at up here as well. So I want to add a keyframe to this scenic clip here. I can just make it active so that it's active there and this little diamond comes on. I click there, there's a keyframe. Just go to the left a little bit, add another one, and now click on that one and drag it down to the left. Bam, done. How simple. Excellent. Let's go to the end here and do the same thing at the end. Start right about here to start dropping the volume. I'm going to add a keyframe there that's equal to that one, so I just make this clip active and click there, and there's that keyframe. Now I want to go to the end, or partially toward the end, click again, and just grab this guy and pull it down. Simple. There you go. If I want to come down earlier, I'm going to navigate to the keyframe like this. There we are on the keyframe. Now I can grab it, have it come down a little bit earlier. Sometimes it's easier to control an entire track when you've got lots of clips in it and you just want to not worry about all the individual clips. So I'm going to undo all these keyframes here, go Control Command Z to undo them all. And I want to work on a track basis. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to click on this little Show Keyframes button, switch over to the track keyframes. And it's going to gray out the top there, so you can't control all the audio clips that way. You can see they're all grayed out now. You can choose track volume or panning. And if you add any effects to the track inside the audio mixer, you add effects up here in the audio mixer. And if you add any effects there, then they'll show up down here as well. I'm going to close that though, so you just see this. I want to change the audio volume in the track. So I'm going to go over here and start this one off quieter. So I'm going to move this current time indicator to there. I'm going to click on the Add a Keyframe button there. I'll go over to the left a little ways, add a keyframe there, and pull this thing down like that. Now I've controlled the volume. If you watch over here on the left, let's see what happens there. Comes up slowly. You see it going up there, moving up. We've got keyframes. I'll show you that again. Watch that again. Watch the controller here on the left. Works its way up like that. There you go. Let's do the same thing with the track below here. Add a keyframe to the same basic location. Make this track active. I'm going to switch over here to track keyframes. And now I'm going to click here to ask for a keyframe to be placed there. Notice the keyframe looks a little different. It's got a dot in it. Ask for another one. Pull it down to the left like that. This is the second track now, so we watch that one. You'll see that this guy's going to drop down there as well. They both work together now. Pretty cool. We can drop this guy at the end the same way. Just take it to the end. There. Got another keyframe. A little bit farther in. Another keyframe. And pull it down like that. At this point, you can watch this right control go down. There you go. That's how you do track keyframes. We're going to work with the mixer in a separate chapter, but I just want to kind of give you a sense of how that works. Moving on to the time-lapse sequence, this is where we've got two clips working together. We need more real estate here, so I'm going to pull this guy up, get rid of that video, just work with these two guys. I'm going to expand the view down here by opening that. I want to expand the width too, so I press the backslash key. There you go. And I want to have the thunder come in later and the wind start gradually. So I'm going to put a keyframe right here. Now, if I want to use the pen tool, I can use that as well. Just go over here and just click, and that adds a keyframe like that. I can add another one like this and pull it down. So you can use the pen tool. Not necessarily a bad thing to do, right? I'm going to use the pen tool here as well. So I want to bring the volume up like that. And click over here and bring it down. You can see it is kind of fast to use the pen tool. Trouble with the pen tool, if you want to not add a keyframe, just control it. You got to hold down the control key to do that. When you click on it, then it doesn't move very well. As you can see, it's kind of tricky to move it. But at any rate, that's how you use the pen tool. But what I want to do now is change to panning. So I'm going to click this little drop-down list here and go to Panner. No longer volume. Now it's going to be Panner. So now you've got the same yellow line, but no keyframes come up because we're working with the Panner controller, not the volume controller. And I want to pan this guy in from the right, starting about here and then bring it in from the right. So I'm going to click here to add a keyframe. Now go up, that's minus 100, that's left. Down, that's right, plus 100. Then I go over here, click again and pull it all the way up like that. We'll go all the way across like that, minus 100. So it's going to pan from right to left. Let's see if that works. We're going to isolate this track. I'm going to turn off volume here just to hear that track and see if we hear the thunder move from right to left here. If you got your headset on or got your speakers on, you heard the thunder go from right to left there, kind of fast. So when I hover over a keyframe here with the pen tool, you see it has a little zero on it or kind of an oval there. That means you can now select it and drag it right or left. There you go. So we'll have it take a little bit longer to make that little pan. I'm going to go back to volume here. I think I want the volume to be a little louder, so I'm going to level for volume. Bring this guy up a little louder like that. So let's see how this works here. I'll turn the volume back on here. There we go. Probably went a little bit too far left, but that's just for drama, right? So that's how you control panning and volume in a sequence in the timeline. To me, it's just much more intuitive. It's much easier than working inside the Effect Controls panel.